Hello guys, today I will be teaching the basics of Android development. However, I'm no expert and I'm currently enrolled in Android development classes. Another thing to take away is that I will not focus on visuals. Maybe I will in future videos, but for now I want to demonstrate how the code works and how we can set up a running application that can be used in your own projects. I would say this is a very beginner level app. I will be using Java, multiple activities, and I will be sending data across those activities. And the data will just be the user score, which will be displayed at the end of the game. It's pretty simple. The XML files will look like this. This is where the score is going to be at the very end of the game. So the first thing you need to do is create a new project. So go to new project, empty activity, and next. You're going to call this whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to call it quiz tutorial. And then I'm going to use Java. And you can use whatever API level you want. It's a pretty straightforward app, so you don't need anything fancy. I'm just going to keep it at Android 4.0 and then finish. We wait for this to set up. So my computer can't run emulators all that well, so I'm going to be using my own personal phone. So the first thing you want to do is get rid of this hello world. Well, I guess you don't really need to delete it. Get rid of the constraints really quick. And then say click below to start. And then what you want to do is you want to move this up here and then build a constraint and keep it around 150. Do 16 and 16. And what this does is it just kind of keeps it centered. They're the horizontal constraints and they will center the text. The top margin just keeps the text near the top. We don't need to worry about a bottom. It's fine. If you want, you can change text size and the font. And so the way you do that is go down to here where it says text size, down in the common attributes, and click any size that you want. I'm gonna go 24, and then I'm gonna do font family. I didn't save it. So you want to do whatever font that you like. I think I'm gonna do Chango because that's the one I did previously, and it sounds kind of funny. So there you go, and that's how we get the text to go there. So what we want to do next is add a button. And so this button will start the game. So we're going to call this Start Quiz. And here we can also change the text size. So let's make it like 18, for example. And we can also change the font. So another way you can change the content of whatever's in here is through the text down over here, which is just a script. If you see here this button and we click on it, it shows this. And so we can do the text right here and we can change the text within. Call it that or something. And then we can also do stuff like this. Android, font, family, and we can do like that. And it changes the font. It's up to you whether you like the text, if you like using these buttons. Yeah, they produce the same results. I like the buttons better, in my opinion, because it's just easier to work with. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we don't want to keep the Start Quiz button in the center, because it may look weird or may look off depending on the device you're using. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete this top constraint, and then we're going to click this little circle right here, pull it up, and then connect it to this bottom circle from the above text. And what that's going to do is now this is constrained to this, which means that this will always be how we're, whatever number we set here below the text view. Yeah, whatever. So it's also, but it's also constrained to the bottom. And I don't want a bottom constraint. It's up to you if you do, and it will pull it up. And so we can keep this at 32. I'm going to just do 64. It doesn't really matter. So what I'm going to do is get rid of both the left and the right constraint. Click this right circle, this right constraint, and pull it up to this right one on the text view. And then we're going to do the same, but with the left side. And with these constraints, it will always make it so the Start Quiz button is aligned with this text up here. So there we go. That's our first XML file. Pretty standard, pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the other XML files. So to do that, we need to go down to where it says Res, go to Layout, and then just right click and then do New, Activity, and then Empty Activity. And we can call this whatever we want to call it. I'm going to call it First Question. And then just hit Finish. And so what this did is that it created a Java first question and also created an activity first question.xml. And so that's what we're mostly worried about is this. So this is going to be the layout for the next part of the quiz. Okay, so what we're going to do is click text view, pull it in here, hit an upper constraint, and put that to 50. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do 16 and 16. And then in this text view, we can just change that to, we're going to type in the first question. And we're going to ask, what is the capital of Australia? Question mark. We're going to change the font family. Just click this little arrow and then do Django. And then we can increase the font, do 30. You can also align the text. Okay, so another thing you can do, you can also align the text from within. So just go down to text. You just click anywhere. It doesn't really matter. Android, text alignment, and then we'll do center. I'll actually center the text. We want to now put in options for the user to click on. So we're going to grab a button, place it in here, and we're going to do that 3 more times. Don't worry about the ID up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to name each button. So we're going to call this one Canberra. We're going to call this one Sydney. This one Melbourne. I think that's how you spell it. We're going to call this one Brisbane. Oh. And so now we have our options. But what we're going to do then is we want this to align with this text up here. And so we're going to grab this create top constraint, pull it up, and pull it up right here. And as you see, it's connected because right here the constraint is at 0. So what we want to do is click on the 0 and type in 64. And so now there's a space between them. Then we want to delete the left constraint and the right constraint while we're at it, and then pull this left constraint, pull it up here to this little ball, and then pull this right one to this right little ball, which is, by the way, these upper balls are part of the text constraints. This button right here is completely reliant on the text. And then what we want to do is we want to do something similar with this next button down here. So we're going to grab this top constraint, pull it to this bottom one on Canberra, grab this left one, apply it to this left one right here, and then do the same with the right one to the right one. And then we want to add in a space. I'm going to do 32. It doesn't matter. These numbers are I just chose them because I thought they would look nicer. And then what we want to do is pull this top one to this bottom constraint, and then do just the same thing as before. Change these numbers, 32, and then do this once again with the last button. Oh. And then do 32. Click on them. And you want to add these right here, D150. Because if you don't have these lower bounds, sometimes it might be that if a screen's small, it might cut off half of Melbourne and you won't even see Brisbane as an option. And we don't want that. And so in the main activity, what we want is that when the user clicks this button, we appear in this activity. And so the only way to do that is to make an intent. An intent is just a library, I guess, that handles all the communication between activities for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new method. And we're going to call it public void. And then we can call it whatever we want. I'm just going to name it on click. It really doesn't matter. And then do view. And then you're going to have this little error. Just hit Alt, Enter. It'll import some libraries and there's no problem. So we're going to have an intent object. We can call it whatever we want. And I'm going to call it intent. And then we're going to make it a new object. So a new intent. And then we're going to pass in this, which is this class that we're in right now. And so from this class, we're going to comma. And then after that, we want to enter, or we want to type in the activity that we're going to go into. And we're going to go by the name of the Java file. The Java file that corresponds to that is called firstQuestion.java. And so what we're going to do is call it firstQuestion.class. And we see these errors. We're going to hit Alt, Enter. And then what we want to do is then start activity. And then we're going to pass in the intent. So once we reach this part of the code, we will actually jump from this activity to here. So what we want to do then is go to activity main, click on start quiz button, and then go down where it says on click, and then click on click. Like I said, and this on click is just this name right here. It doesn't really matter what we call it. That's kind of how I learned to do it in class. So now what we want to do now is make another activity, and we're going to call this one activity, empty activity, and we're going to call this one the second question. And we're going to hit enter a new XML file, and this one's going to be blank. We want to have a similar style from the first activity's question. So the way to do that is just go here for the first activity, go down to text, from text view all the way down to the last button, hit Control C, and then just get out of there, and then go down here to text, and then hit Control V, and then we have this. Just change the text. For this question, we want to ask, okay, so because this is a lot of text, we want to actually decrease this top margin, and we want to put down to 20. Of course, you can move that around as you want. I just figured 20 was what worked best for the device that I'm running. And so what we want to do now is we want to change these options down here, all these buttons. So we're going to go down where it says text, and then we're going to change that to whatever answers you want to put in. It's the big gay. And then the second one we want to type in, it's a dick. It's a dick. So yeah. And then for this one we want to do, no, bro jobs all day. And then for this one, it's straight if you receive it. And enter. And so now we have all our answers. And the constraints are the same as the previous activities, and it gives us less work to do. And then what we want to do is that we want to make the last question. So we do another activity, another empty activity, and we call this the third question. Once again, we take this text, copy and paste, you go to text, and then just right here in this empty line, just Control V. And so once again, we have brought everything the same into this one. But since we're going to use we're going to use less text for this question, we just want to put that to 50. Then in the text field, we want to change that. I'm just going to ask, is my dog the cutest dog in the world? And so now the four options are going to be no. Oh gosh, no. Be careful with that. So no, mine is the cutest. No, KYS. Yes. And so now we have this activity done. And so for the last activity then, we want the score. So we're going to go down to activity. This will be our last activity, I promise. And we're going to call this one the scoreboard. Enter finish. Grab a text view. Pull it up here. And just say your score. And then we're going to increase the font because 14 is too small. Maybe 30 is fine. And then font family, I'm going to change to Django to keep it consistent. You want to add an upper bound. Maybe make it something like 150. And then we're going to keep these horizontal bounds. Then we're going to do another text view right below it. And we're going to get rid of the top margin first and then pull it up to your score text view. Then get rid of this lower margin. So now it gets pulled up all the way, and then just put down 64 or whatever number you think suits best. Get rid of these other two margins. Click right here again. Constrain it to the side of the text view, and then constrain it to the other side. And so now this will be perfectly matched with this your score text view. And so this one we want to give an ID. So this text view is going to change with the user's score. We're going to actually use this ID in the scoreboard.java. So we're just going to call this score view. It doesn't matter. And then right here we're just going to type in score. And then we want to add another button for the user to play again. Give this button an ID because I'm going to show you guys another way to use buttons. And we're going to call this one play button. And then we're going to put this text down here to play again. Maybe add an exclamation mark. And then again, we want to make this constrained to the score right here. Give it maybe 128 constraint and get rid of these left and right constraints and constrain it down to the score right here. And then the score is a little small, so we want to increase the font. Let's do 30. Now that we have all the activities done, we want to go back into the Java files and go from activity to activity. So we're done with the first activity. So from here, we can already jump to this activity right here. So in this activity's Java file, you want to make two methods. We want to make it so every answer, so no matter what button we press, we will head to the second activity. So a way to do that is to make another onClick method where we can start a new intent. So we're going to call this correct answer view, and then make an intent. And we can call this whatever we want. Equals new intent. Remember, it's from this class to the next Java class, which is going to be second question.class. And start activity intent. Okay, Alt Enter. And so what we want to do is copy this method, then right below it just paste it. And then instead of correct answer, we want to call this one incorrect answer. So the reason we're having two separate intents is because when the user gets a correct answer, we want to add a point to his overall score. And if he gets an incorrect answer, then we can choose to either penalize him by subtracting a point or just giving him a 0. And so what we're going to do up here is we're going to make a string, call it increment score equals 1, and then decrement score equals 0. And then we're going to have another one called score equals score. If we want to make any changes later on, like let's say if we want to increment the score by, let's say, 100 points, we can just change it up here rather than having to go through the rest of the code. Same with here, if we want to penalize, we can also change that number to like a -5, for example. We don't only just want to get to the next activity, but we also want to get the user's score. So what we're going to do then is use the intent. And we're going to do intent.put extra. Put extra is score and increment score. We're going to convert this string into an integer and then do the math, whatever. But the score kind of just holds this value, and this is important because it's actually used to identify this part right here in a later Java, in the Java class. And so what we're going to do is we want to do the same for here. Just copy and paste that, but instead of increment score, we want to put in decrement score. Before we finish the first question layout, what we want to do is click on these buttons and then do onClick. And so Canberra is the correct answer, so we want to reward the user. So we click in correct answer. For the rest of the buttons, we click on these onClick and then do incorrect answer. Just like so. Okay, and so now we're done with this activity. So from the second activity, we're going to do something similar. So the idea is the same. We're going from this layout to this third layout. So what do we want to do? We want to use intent. So we're just going to copy. So we're going to copy and paste this method right here. Oh, we're going to copy and paste. We're going to copy this method and paste it right here. And we're going to say okay. Then we're going to make another string called increment score equals 1 and decrement score equals 0, and then score equals score. Okay, so this should be, all errors should go away, and then we're gonna copy and paste again, and except this time it's gonna be correct answer. That's actually gonna be increment. However, this time it's different. We don't want to just pass this score or this increment score to the next file, because if we do that, then this file is going to receive that score, but it's only going to see 1 or a 0. If the player got the previous answer correct and this one correct, then it would still only pass in a 1. And so this file will only read 1. So the way around that would be to do this. The thing we want to do is create an integer and you call that current score. And so it'll be empty. But we want to do this on the onCreate method. We're going to do current score equals, so from the first question.java, this intent put extra, this saves it as a string value, or it's being saved as a string value as seen above. And so because this is a string, we want to turn that string into an integer. And so the way to do that is to call this integer, is to do integer.value of, and then so we want to get intent dot, so get intent dot get string extra, and then type in score. And so this score right here is obviously the score right here, which it should be exactly the same as this score in here. If it is not exactly the same, then it will not receive that information, which is why I like to keep it as its own string. That way, if there's any issues later on, we can just check on the top of the file. So now current score is whatever score was passed on. So if the player got the previous answer correct, this current score is 1. Incorrect, it's 0. So when the user selects the correct answer for this question, then we want to add on to the score. So what we'll do is current score plus equals, so we'll do integer dot value of increment score. And for decrement score, we want to do copy this line of code, paste it in here, but instead of increment score, we want decrement score. Oh, we want decrement score. You don't want to pass in the increment score anymore because, like I said, it's just going to pass in the 1. So what you want to pass in then is the current score. And it's the same for this down here. You pass in the current score, and now this third, convert it from an integer to a string. So what we're going to do is integer dot toString current score. Make our life easier. Paste. So it sends in the current score as a string to the third activity, which the second. So now that we have all this set up, we want to go back into the activity second question.xml. And so what we want to do then is click on these buttons, and then on the on click, we want to type in, or we want to click the correct or incorrect answer method. So it's the big A, which is incorrect answer. This is also the incorrect answer. This is rightfully so the correct answer. And this is the incorrect answer. So now when the user clicks the correct answer, it adds to their score. And so what we want to do is we want to copy and paste all this code, hit OK, and slap it onto here. Then what we want to do is copy this, paste it in here, and copy this current score into this onCreate. Oh, so one last thing I forgot to mention is that because we're in the second question.java, we want to send our information to the third question.java. So in here, we're going to type in third question.class. Otherwise, we'll just get sent back to this right here and nothing works. And so, okay, so we want to be careful with this right here. So in the intent, we're trying to go to the next activity, which is the scoreboard. So we're going to type in scoreboard.class and do the same for this one, scoreboard.class. So in the activity, what we want to do is we want to put these down as the correct or incorrect answers. And so for this one, it's incorrect. This one is incorrect. This one, while I do want a KMS, it is unfortunately the incorrect answer. And this is absolutely the correct answer. Okay. So now from this third Java file, we can actually get to the scoreboard. And so the scoreboard right now is just score. So once you get here, all you'll see is this. But we don't want to just see this. We want to see the actual score printed on here. And that's why we call this ID score view in the scoreboard.java. So we want to call this integer, this int final score. And then we're going to have final score equal integer dot value of get intent dot get string extra, and then we're going to do type in score, which is going to be the string score, which we're going to call string score equals score. So to display it, we actually need to make, we don't need to make a new method. I just like to set up my my GUI this way. So we're gonna call this one public void and then set up GUI. Do this. And so what we're gonna do from here then is we're going to actually be using this score view ID and this button ID. We're going to be interacting with them through the Java file. And so to do that, we actually need to set them up inside the code. Another thing that we should do is up here, create text view. We're going to call it text view and we're going to call this score display. And then we're going to do button and then play again button. And then Alt Enter twice. Oh, and instead of GUI, we're going to set up the Java to look for these, for the text view and the button. So we're going to do score display equals find view. So we're going to do find view by ID, which is searching for these IDs right here. So for the score, it's going to be looking for the score view. So we're going to hit R dot ID dot score view. And then similarly, we're going to do this with the button. We're going to do play again button equals find view r.id, which was called play button. We can interact with these two within the actual Java code. And so we just have to set up GUI, and then after we set up the GUI, we don't have to make another method, but I like to split my stuff up. We can call this public void and then display score, and then we're going to call this display score from the onCreate display score. And so on this display score, what we're going to do is whatever our current is going to be shown on the text view. And so to do that, we need to do score display dot set text, and for here we need to pass in a string. If we pass in an int, it won't work and it'll crash. And so we're going to do integer dot toString final score. Another method is, I guess you could also make this a string value and then just make the string equal that. We don't have to worry about like translating it from integer and then back to string. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so then we'll display the score. The small touch, what you can do is if final score is greater than 1, then we display this. So we'll copy this and then we'll add on an exclamation mark. Okay, and then else you don't get an exclamation mark, and it's just poor and sad. So I mean, this is completely optional right here. I just like to do it because if you get a 0, then there's no need to be excited, and same with if you get a 1, and that's just totally up to you if you want to do it or not. Okay, so after this, what we want to do now is you want to be able to play again. So to do that, we're gonna make another method called play again. And we're not going to pass anything in, and we're just going to create down here public void play again. Simple. So earlier I mentioned that there are 2 ways to use buttons. I'm going to show you another way to set up these buttons. So up here we have button, play again button, and we're going to call this play again button dot set on click listener down here, and then we're going to do new view, and then we're going to see this first option right here and just hit enter, and it's going to create this method down here. And now what we're going to do is intent, make a new intent equals new intent, but instead of doing this, what we're going to do is we're going to do is scoreboard dot this. Alt enter. Right here, this public void is part of it's outside of the scope of this right here. Or it's not within the scope. I'm not really sure. Okay, so you want to do scoreboard.this, and then you want to go into the main activity. Back to the main activity, so you do main activity.class. And then we're going to do start activity intent. Now if you enter.
All right, so as you guys can see, this is how the app's going to look like. So we're going to do start quiz. And then what is the capital of Australia? Canberra. Oh, so as you can see, we have a little bit of an issue. So we're just going to do, just click whatever. This one looks fine. And then just do, yes. And so as you see, your score is 2. And now we play again. It starts from the beginning.
Okay, so this view is being a little weird. So what we're going to do is lower the font a little bit. And then change the constraint down to 30. And then just see what happens.
Okay, so as you can see, it's working now. And yeah, so my score is 0. So if you start quiz, Barrow, bro jobs all day. And then yes, and you get a total score of 3. Or if you know, you can also get incorrect answers, and then you get 0. So you play again. So it's just it's a neat little application you can do.
Okay, so I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial and that it was easy to follow along. It is my first tutorial, so I'm a little unsure on how to explain certain things and how to articulate my words. But if you guys had any issues, just ask below and I will try my best to help. But I'm not going to lie, debugging code from people explaining things is a bit tough, but nonetheless, I'll try. So I hope that I'll see you guys soon. Ruby Penguin, Ruby Programs. Yeah, I'm out.